So there's this factory in Lekki Expressway side. 90% of the staffs are Chinese. They bought a big house, and literally everyone living in that house work in that factory. As a matter of fact, maybe the gateman is Nigerian, maybe the cleaner is Nigerian, but everyone from the office to the staffs working in the factory, they are all Chinese.
The reason there is no deliberate policy on like industrial innovation or industrial skills for Nigerians, which is what you're talking about with this Chinese startup, is something that is beyond me, even till today. Take all the top 10 richest countries in the world and the top 10 poorest countries in the world. The difference is technology innovation. If Nigeria becomes a very, very great country tomorrow, the first thing that will happen is a government would come and say, Nigeria is going to be the leader in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sectors.
So to get started, let me just brag about you a little bit to start off. So you are at the intersection of innovation, technology, and public policy and politics.
Yeah.
Wow. You champion the transformation of higher education institutions in Africa into innovation hubs.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
Yeah.
You are deeply committed to social impact.
Yeah.
And you're also involved in advising government agencies and crafting strategies that leverage technology.
Yeah.
And finally, you love philosophy. That is very, very pronounced.
Yeah.
So to start off, what is your current favorite quote?
Okay. I don't think it's a quote. I think it's a belief. Words are powerful.
Yeah.
I think that's my favorite. Like, I think that's the most important idea that I believe. Words are powerful. And I could go on and on about it. But yeah, what people say, when they say, how they say it, so whom they say it, and who is saying it, it carries so much power. And I think that every day I am trying to improve on the kind of words I use, the tone of the words. That's just what I believe. I mean, there are a number of other quotes. So, for example, if I ever send you an email, from my personal email, you see 2 different quotes. From my work email from CCL, you see another quote entirely. So I really do like quotes, right? Because I kind of feel like it reminds people.
More like a mantra.
Yeah, more like a mantra. So maybe I'm not actually even answering your question. Or maybe I'm saying my own quote, which is the one.
Love is powerful is a
words are
powerful enough of a quote.
Yeah.
So is a word, is a quote, also a reminder then for people to be careful of what to say, how to say it.
Yeah. If you go into social change, and which is impact, right? You also find out that you cannot. I don't want to get philosophical so early.
No.
Well, this is a very deep question. You cannot change any society without persuasion.
You can't.
Because what you're trying to do, like societal change, is complicated, right? But in the most simple form, what you're trying to do with societal change is you're trying to change the behavior of a certain group of people. Pretty much. Right? And not just the behavior, but the habits as well. Right? The beliefs as well. Think about the habits that you have that you've been trying to change and how hard
it has been.
Now imagine I want to change the habits of 250 million people. So there is no way you do that without persuading people, without moving people from point A to point B, without saying, and that's really what leadership is about. And I know we're going to get into that conversation later again, and that's why I keep on saying words are powerful. When you look at someone and you look at a kid, look at what Tunde Onakoya is doing, right, with this chess. I think it's one of the most beautiful projects in Nigeria today. even though I do think, like I said recently, that the lesson of what Sunday is doing is lost on a lot of us, which is that you can take a kid from the slums, from under the bridge, and encourage them. Because there's a lot of speaking into those kids that you must have done to tell them that you mean something, you can become something, right? And then go ahead to give them the tools and encourage them. And when they feel like, look at the child with the cerebral palsy, for example, who came second, I think, in the competition in New York, right? Do you know how much societal brutalism, I don't even know if brutality, that's a word, that he must have gotten from his childhood, right?
Disability.
For that disability, how much he must have been rejected. So having someone to say you can do this, even in the first instance, he wouldn't believe it. So you have to speak now at a societal level. You're trying to do that for 250 million people. You need words, man.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to speak the right words.
Not like I said, it would be nice to have him and ask him, what did you tell them?
I mean, because it wouldn't have been easy.
It's really how do you crap? Like, if you go back to the stories of some of the greatest speeches in the world, sometimes randomly I just listen to them.
Yeah.
I Have a Dream, for example. Some of Obama's speeches, for example. And then you felt moved.
Yeah.
Certain things you felt convinced about certain things.
Yeah.
You start to have a different perspective on different problems.
Yeah. Obama's speech in 2008?
Oh, 19 is the
It's 2008, 2004.
Yeah.
2004 speech at the convention, at the DNC convention. People say that speech that made him president. If you go online, type the speech that made Obama president, that was speech that was smart. Why? Because in 15 minutes, literally, he stood on a podium and spoke to the American people, not just people who were in that conference, right? And, created, I've listened to that speech, like, and I'm not kidding you, not less than 200 times.
Oh, wow.
And also because I use it as a tool for teaching, because I do have a non-profit for young people who are getting into politics, or getting them to understand social and political capital, and again, the power of words, right? So we go through that speech over and dissect every year since 2018 when we started. So you look at the word, like what he did so much in 15 minutes, connecting to people, and that's what really is about. Again, social change, because you are not able to move people from point A to point B if you don't connect with them, right? And the way to connect with them is words. I think there's a quote that someone said that words are like, powerful words are like someone singing to your soul and connecting with you at that level.
Like the Bible said, a word for that time, for that season. So there was definitely a situation or a socio-economic situation currently happening in the US at the time. And Obama's speech summed it up. Like, I understand what is going on. I understand the impact from the big person all down to the smallest person. And that's why it was easy for people to connect with. So imagine someone that has no understanding of what it is to live in Oshodi on that bridge. And I say, you can change your life if you just do this.
Again, let me tell you one of my dilemmas today. It is that every now and then I try to think about what combination of words would work for the Nigerian electorate to shift their position from where they currently are right now to, guys, we need to elect better leaders, right? And when I was running for, I'm sure I know we're going to get there. Yeah, but it was at times when I speak in this kind of settings, it's the constant thing I'm thinking, like, how do I connect with this person? I know I'm in Nigeria, but by the time you get into politics and you figure out, like, it's not just about speaking, right? And there's a formula that is like a potpourri, a number of factors that you have to bring together to be able to move people from place from point A to point B. But at the least, like at the base level, is that words are powerful. The words you use at every point in time, not just even in terms of social change, in the office.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, a lot of people have Gen Z staff now, and it's a completely different culture, right? When you have someone who's working for you and is going through something, the words you speak to them determines whether they are able to put more energy into the work, or whether they're able to push beyond, or whether they're able to go over and beyond, you know?
Yeah.
So it's at every single point when you're making a presentation and you're trying to convince a client,
Yeah.
the words that you use, how you communicate that, right? It's what's going to determine whether that person says, I like this product, or I like this idea, or this is an innovative idea. Let's go the next mile and see whether I will support you or not. Or whether, I think I want to use this product. You know, again, words are I think is the tool that we take for granted as humans, because we all have access to it, and we just
think I didn't do anything. I just told him something.
Exactly.
You know, and the Bible says that word is like double-edged sword.
It is.
This is very powerful.
You could say something, the same thing that you say could be interpreted differently in different arenas and in different contexts. And if someone else comes and says the same thing, people could interpret that differently. So it's not just, again, like I said, words are, oh my God, I'm fascinated by words.
Let's go back, right? Let's set the foundation. You did pharmacy.
Yes, I did. For about 4 years.
Okay, there's a lot. There's a lot going on here.
Yeah, it is.
There's a lot going on because I know what you did. That we're going to get through in politics.
Oh, yeah.
And okay, let's start. So from pharmacy to philosophy to social impact.
Yeah.
Let's start. How did it all start?
Okay, so the pharmacy story is my dad's a pharmacist. So I would say I come from a medical family. My dad's a pharmacist. My mom works in my dad's pharmacy. My stepmom is a nurse. We have 3 sisters in my family, all of them. One is a nurse, one is a doctor, one is a pharmacist. So, but when I was growing up as well, I worked with, my dad had a factory, a pharmaceutical factory that was producing drugs, acetaminophen, cough syrups. Even though it's shut down, we'll come back to that as well. But yeah, I finished secondary school very early, actually, at 14. And I was like, okay, yeah, let's. So I got admission. It was pharmacy. There was no question about it.
Yeah.
And my dad's first son, by the way. So it was just like,
there's no question about it.
So that shit. Even though, by the time I was leaving, we had a debate about whether he forced me to do pharmacy or not and stuff. Or that's, by the way.
He may not force you, but
yeah,
it's like, family business, natural projection.
So, and I was into it actually at some point, because every time we went back home during the holidays, I went to the factory to work.
Yeah.
I already knew. In fact, I took my practicals in pharmacy school for granted, because the real practicals was already doing it, right? Like mixing drugs, we're already producing like so I literally would leave school on Friday. I get back home on Saturday. That Saturday I would be in the factory. And then I'm resuming back to school on Monday. And then the Saturday before school, I'm in the factory. So it was just easy peasy and easy going until Nigeria happened. My dad wanted to expand, reached out to BOI, Bank of Industry, and I'm happy to say that story now. Reached out to Bank of Industry at the time. And they came for inspection. They saw the factory. They saw the investment. They're like, "Oh, nice, this is good. But this fund is an operational fund for your operation. So if you could invest more money in getting a new production line,
to give you operational fund,
and then we'll come back to inspect it. Then we'll give you the operational funding." So at the time, he put all his money. Literally, like, if you helped my dad for money at the time, you would know that something was happening. So he put all his money and investments and a couple of other things into actually buying. So he went to India, got all the machinery, built out the new production line.
Isn't that what bank in industry is set up to do?
God bless you. So he got all of that, bought all the machines, and then by the time he came back, they came to inspect, and he said, "Oh yeah, this is nice. This is what the terms of the operational fund will look like." And of course, the backstopping, let me put it that way. So he did all the numbers, and I was like, "This your backstopping is not going to work." Because operating in Nigeria with these operational expenses, they kept on negotiating about it, and then it didn't work, and then the factory started shutting down, and then taxes, and then local government people, and then pilfering. So it was not just that incident, but that was the
catalyst that began the whole process.
Growing up, I don't want to use the word compassionate because that would be like losing my friend. But growing up, I'd been the kind of person that I was very observant. Where I grew up in my community, my dad was literally like the biggest mansion in the entire place. And I was very stubborn when I was growing up. Like I did everything. I played football, I played badminton, I was just everywhere. So I had friends in the neighborhood. And those friends, of course, were not as economically buoyant as my dad at the time. So when the factory shut down, I had this thing they call midlife crisis. I had an early life crisis because in my mind I was like my dad's a very hardworking person. Even right now, he's still the most hardworking man I know. And he's pushing 70s now.
Wow.
And at the time, I was like, one, I'm not as hardworking as this guy. And if he's gone through this pharmacy route, and this is where he ends up, then there's a problem.
There's a problem there.
Right? Nobody should be this hardworking and this passionate, and they can't move forward in this country. And that's somebody who has the opportunity and the access to capital and the access to be able to do something about it. What about my friends who don't have access to anything? What about the guys who were in the factories who they depended on jobs? Something was wrong. And what was wrong? Of course, the politics, the corruption,
everything.
Ease of doing business, which I still lament about it today. The lack of an industrialization policy. Like at that age, I was very clear on, and also because I had front row experience. I would be in the office when my dad would come and would be lamenting about local government people coming to, collect taxes.
Multi-taxation.
Like somebody will come every week, different sets of people coming to collect taxes. So I was right in the front when all those events were happening. So I'm like, I might not be able to. It's in my mind at the time. I was like, and this is my thesis. I was like, I'm definitely not as hardworking as this guy. So if I go against this same system that he's gone against, and now his factory has failed, I don't have a chance. I
don't work as hard as these.
Yeah.
No, they will have smoked you.
So I'm like, maybe I can try to fix the problem. Okay. Which is at the societal level, which I was much more in tune with, like naturally. Like I said, when I was growing up, my friends and a couple of, I wouldn't say public speaking, but I'm a people person. So I was like, what we need to fix, or at the very least, I need to try to fix, because in my mind, I'm like, I probably wouldn't be able to do it alone, but I need to try to fix this so that people like himself, who are hardworking, people who have the passion to be able to industrialize, and they need to be able to do that, would not face the same problems that I did. And that was why I decided to leave pharmacy. So I moved from pharmacy in my 4th year, which I was in 300 level at the time because I repeated a class, which is another story entirely. But people who go to pharmacy school, you can't fail more than 3 courses.
Oh, wow.
You can't even fail any course, actually. You can't fail any course before you move to the next one. If you fail more than 3 courses, you have to repeat the entire class. So if you fail 3 courses or more, then you take those 3 courses, the exams again, and then you have to pass and move on. So in my 300 level, I just said, you know what, I'm done. This is not going to work. I'm going to try to fix the society part. And then I moved to philosophy. I also didn't first move to philosophy. I moved first to international relations because I didn't do government. I went to actually go to political science.
Yeah, I was about asking that.
Yeah.
You were trying to get somewhere, and then
Yeah.
philosophy was where you ended up landing on.
Yes. And I think it was really God that moved me there, or the universe, whatever you want to call it. Right? Because, oh my God, I enjoyed you enjoy philosophy, my time in philosophy. I didn't read.
It just came naturally.
It just, oh my God, it was. I don't read to pass. Like it was when I saw my colleagues when I was when I now eventually moved to philosophy, and like I did science students. Some of the professors who are the guys I'm not actually interviewing for my podcast were like, oh, these science students are just coming. Are you sure you are going to be able to cope? Like, I ended up teaching some of my colleagues. So when it came to logic and critical thinking, which is one of the courses you have to do in underlevel, training level, you have to do logic, and not logic in terms of essay logic. There were mathematical logics, using symbols, and that was the base of all the other theoretical ones. So there were mathematical arguments, and they were not mathematical in terms of numbers, but in terms of symbols. All right. And so those mathematical arguments that you were learning in the course is exactly the same way you had you for a course or a position, or you want to critique a paper. All right. So it was basically it was fun for me. But when I got there eventually, and of course I majored in social and political philosophy.
Yeah, that was your goal.
Yeah, which was my goal. And again, like I really, really did enjoy my time. I'm still a philosopher at heart. I and some of my colleagues or friends host a once in a while monthly salon on philosophy conversations here in Abuja, and sometimes in Lagos. And so that's been the journey, and of course that's what led me over in the end to
Like the fact that there's like a foundation that you had a front row to experience firsthand. These are kind of things that when you tell other people and they're like, oh, we don't have so much factories in Nigeria. Most of our medications are coming from India and from China and the rest. And I just used to tell them, see, those who have done it and have succeeded at it, right? You say that they are very fortunate, or they didn't need certain support. Right. The story of Dangote having to they built the refinery with little to no support, and the government came in. The little the government provided support for became a big issue. And that's why I've seen, even in the real estate space, some Nigerians that struggled real estate in Nigeria do pretty good well in the US.
Yeah.
Because all you need is 30 to 35% down payment. You just do your financing. You have the bank.
Absolutely.
And yeah, you do your financing. You are not sure if a Masco will come after you.
Yep.
You're not sure if the bank that gave you a bank guarantee will be after you.
Yep.
So there's a lot of greed going on. So from philosophy, that did you transition directly into like startup, or you transition into a different industry before you went into the startup?
No. I'd always been a. Actually, let me tell you my startup story.
Good.
When I was in Ife, in Hawaii, I was living. So when I transitioned to philosophy, that is like actually that same year. I got an internship in Accenture. That was my first 9-to-5 engagement, and that was when I decided I was never going to do a 9-to-5 anymore. Because Lagos was just really like, but I really enjoyed the job. When I was an intern for like I think about 4 or 5 months. And it was around, I was in the health and policy operation group. They used operation groups at the time. I don't know if they still do. But that was my friends. And then what happened was, after that internship, when we resumed school, my friends so I was living on campus, but my best friend was my best man. already was outside campus. And so because of that experience of living and what was happening with my family and my dad and all the chaos of you are not leaving, I'm leaving, you're not leaving, I'm leaving, I had to stay on campus. So one of these days we watched the Mark Zuckerberg story,
The social story,
the social network.
the
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah, the movie. So we sat down, we watched the social network, and it was, I think, 4 or 5 of us in the room at the time, right? After my internship, I got a PTDS scholarship. It was 400,000 naira every year for 3 years.
Oh wow.
So I was like, guys, we're going to do our own startup. So I bought a laptop from the money, from the 400K at the time, and then the rest went into the startup. We brought together a team. Myself, I wasn't CEO at the time. And one of my friends was CEO. I was operations. We had one of my friends, he works on Amazon now in Sweden. Tolu, Colin Bond was the CTO. He was in biochemistry, by the way. But was learning how to code in Django. Do you remember Django?
Yeah, Django.
So I was learning how to code in Django at the time. So after the movie, we sat down and started thinking, what can we do? Like, what's the opportunity for us to build a technology company from campus? And then we started conversing. I mean, I'm not sure where the idea came from, but from that conversation we said, guys, every year, final year students leave campus and they want to sell off their stuff. Right? Every year. It happens every year.
At least 15 to 30,000.
Yeah. And the campus of OAU where you had 10,000 students,
Yeah.
right? 4 years. So that's like around 5,000 just trying to sell off stuff. And usually what they do is they go to the boards. I don't know if you, which school did you go?
Covenant.
Oh my God. Yeah, we went to private university. In public universities, you would have all these very big boards on the hostels, right? And they could be as wide as from there to here. Like,
Yeah, I know it looks like a Unilag.
yeah, you literally got.
Yeah.
So what final year students were doing was they would take a picture and print
What they want.
their board, their port, whatever it is, and put it on and say, I think it was called this number. I think they were phones then. Call this number.
Or they'll write their room number.
And your room number, so come see what I want to sell. So it was so financial students are going out, they're trying to sell, but they would be out already before
the items get sold.
Before the freshers come on board.
Oh, I see.
You see, so there was obviously I'm sure there's even still that problem today.
Because when you go to Unilag, some hall still has it. Why some of them leave the items to the hall managers,
exactly, to help them sell, and then
they share the income.
And so we're like, we could fix that with a platform, with a technology platform. Then Google was not running hard, Facebook wasn't running hard then at the time.
It was Nairaland that was what?
Yes, at Nairaland at the time. So we were like, we're going to build. We have food. My boy, I got it. I mean, it's been ages, man. So we built out the startup, and then we started looking out. We of course put more money together, bought a domain from the scholarship fund. And then we started reaching out to people, and like I said, I had 13 people working for us at the time. We're not paying a dime. We had a marketing officer, a sales officer. We bought shirts. If you check my website, you will see some of the pictures of the team at the time. We called it Kuza.com. Kuza is Swahili word for buying and selling. For market, I think market. So we call it Kuza.com. And then we put it out. Now, of course, a number of challenges happened. One is the only way we could get people to list their products or to let them know was also the same boards where they were using. That's the first one. So you want to list your stuff, right? So here you have a buyer and a seller, and we have to communicate that we now have a platform to both the buyer and the seller. And we know that all the buyers and both the buyers and the sellers, they're going to go to the board. So like, how do we communicate that, guys, you can list your stuff here? And another problem existed, which was you could put your stuff there on the board, and 2 days later, somebody has already come to put something on it. But with our tech platform at the time, with Kuza.com, it will always be there, right?
Until it's sold.
Yeah, until it's sold. So we built out the platform. Bonds, I think we got another volunteer, Shegun from computer science at the time. I don't know where Shegun is. He was working for System Specs at some point. I should reach out to Shegun. Yeah. So we built it out, but we used Django to build it. And then after we launched, we we're using the money we printed posters made on all the boards, come and build your stuff. Of course, we didn't have a payment gateway. So the only way the first thing that we did again was to say, if you're a buyer and you're a seller, how do we make a commission, right? Tell us what you want to buy, we tell the buyer, and then you pay all the money, we get it. So we're like arbitrage, like awareness Korea. And that was what we're doing. We made some sales, people started putting their stuff there, and then it became seasonal. Whenever goes,
Yeah.
so like, you know what, beyond that, let's start moving to student entrepreneurs who were selling stuff to make a living on campus. So we went to Hold Booker. Hold Booker had a number of people there who were trying to sell stuff. They were students, right? There was a new market as well. So we started going there. We took the entire team. We had some friends who their parents were campus, these campus parents are lecturers and stuff, and they had markets where they were trying to sell stuff. So we take some of those friends. I remember Joy took us, our mom was selling beauty products. So we went there, took pictures, put it on the prices, put it on Kuza.com, and then went to be telling everyone, start telling everyone you can buy wigs on Kuza.com. And that was how we started. So apart from putting the banners up to get people to know, we then also started went to all the restaurants that had screens. I see that it's even a business today.
Yeah.
That had screens, and said, exactly. So we put our hands on the screens, and then we're paying the guys. The restaurant then was very popular. We're paying them
For keeping your
hand on the screens, just to be able to get people to go to the website. After a while, we burnt out our runway.
scholarship money.
But the scholarship money went out. And I figured, you know what, this campus thing is not working. Let's go to Lagos. So by that time, I skipped a part. Something happened to Django. I don't know up to today.
Yes, it just disappeared. They stopped supporting it. I went through the same problem as well.
Oh my God. So on a day when we're already in the middle of all the work that we're doing, I think after almost a year that we've tried to build different layers, the site just went off. Everything crashed. Like, I remember in my room then, because Tolu had the time already started staying with me at medical floor in Howell Hall in Ife. I'm like, what happened? What's going to happen? Our site's gone. Everything is down. Everybody was dejected. At the time, the scholarship money was running out.
Like you spend weeks and months writing codes on a platform that disappeared.
And that was the time I was like, guys, we have to rebuild from scratch. And then that was when I became CEO of the company.
What technology do you guys pivot to?
Python
directly.
Yes.
Because Django is built on Python.
Yes.
Could you just
We just built.
That's what everyone literally built.
Now, Tolu at the time did not know how to code in Python. So he started learning. And it was that experience of learning how to build in Python. We built out the site again from scratch. Of course, it took months. We brought in someone else from computer science, one of my friends, to support him. Paid him, I think, 120,000 naira.
Then
like
almost a 1.2 million naira now.
From I think it was the third,
almost like that now.
We're already running 2 years now, right? Of the scholarship fund I got, giving the money in tranches to build.
And the scholarship fund was 400,000 naira a year.
Yeah, once every year. So by my third year, that was when we already had the Python platform. Then I came to Lagos with, I think it was myself alone or Tommy saying, and then I started saying, you know what, let's reach out to, because Lagos, we already know people are trying to sell. It's not seasonal. We're not trying to convince them. But we couldn't push the platform because it was the year, I think this was, what I'm telling you about now is 2010. So by 2012, Facebook and Google started monetizing
Yes, running ads.
and running hard, but the company had already failed by then, and they had on it.
Cheapest way.
Oh my God.
Like it's just
Because everyone was on Facebook.
God, 15 naira we get you somewhere.
You know?
And then
Everyone was like, so by the time the scholarship fund already ran out, guys are already graduated. Remember, I switched to philosophy.
yeah.
So my friends who were in the normal track had already finished. And then I was like, you know what? I mean, we have to shut this down. And then by the time we shut, like a few months later, I was just talking to myself like, you can really do ads on Facebook. Why didn't they start this going year earlier? But yeah, that's my startup story. What then happened was the company failed. I finished philosophy, and then I moved to Lagos. Definitely, we have a family house in Lagos. We've always done. So
you went back home.
Of course, I went back home. And that's how the entire thing started. A number of other things, because of course I had the medical field. One of my friends, Edwin, is in the UK now. Wanted to start another startup. It was supported by Sidmark Group as a corporate spin-off, and it was focused on the pharmaceutical value chain. But I had vast experience in the pharmacy value chain, like practical experience, and I had tech background with running the startup. So like, Jude, come work with me, let's do this thing together. So I became the CEO of the startup at the time, and that ran from 2014-15, I believe, till 2016.
Let's jump quick into, your work. How do you get started with social impact after that?
Yeah. So remember I mentioned why I left pharmacy originally?
Yeah.
It's still something I'm trying to do right now. Because I do strongly believe that Nigeria has what it takes to be a superpower, when we say superpower in terms of countries. And something is just missing when it comes to, and I think it has to do with, common sense industrialization policies, industrial innovation, ease of doing business.
I believe that I used to always believe growing up that if the government decide to not do anything, when I mean not do anything, that don't enforce policy, don't do anything, just provide like some sort of security, some water supply, good roads, and electricity, Nigeria will prosper on its own.
Yeah. Nigerians have what it takes to build a superpower. Like, when you think about the culture and the entrepreneurial spirit, we're literally like the United States of America.
Yeah, we are. We're all capitalists in this country.
Yeah. By default. So, to a very large extent, I've always been driven to saying, how do we get to that Nigeria where everyone is thriving? Like, that's the entire core of my mission as a person. Right? Like, how do we get to the point where we have a Nigeria that works, people are thriving across board, and all the things that you need to be able to build out, like, it's called self-actualization, right?
Yeah.
What everything you need to be able to self-actualize is just there.
Before we talk about innovation, your work at CCO with innovation and in universities and other things, let's talk about politics.
Yeah.
Right. What created your foray into politics and the story of your first campaign?
Yeah. So again, boils down to this pharmacy story, which is, I already knew, okay, I think I missed out a part. I really do hope my dad doesn't listen to this at any point. But there was a story I heard during that period.
Yeah.
About, he had a friend who was director of pharmaceutical services in the state at the time, who he was reaching out to for, can you hear me talk to these guys? You know what we're doing, we know what we're trying to achieve. And it was so flat out,
there was nothing for him to benefit. So there's no flips.
You are flat out.
Why should I help you?
I think it was even a shit. And they were classmates in pharmacy school in Ibadan.
Wow.
So originally, it was like, I was crystal clear when I left pharmacy that this was a political issue. All right. if you think about some of my philosophical ideas and theories on for these sessions, you will see that power dynamics is at the roots of everything that is wrong with this country. Right?
True.
Political power dynamics. People like not just from the presidents to the party members. Once you just have to leave out the political parts, right? There's a power dynamic between the janitors, right, and the people who are coming to just access the bank on a Saturday.
True.
Because they're like, I have the power to determine, to So fundamentally, when I left from I knew that like you need people in political power, in political spaces, to be able to say, this is where we're going, and this is where we're going to go. Right. So originally, when I was doing the startup, I was also doing politics on the side.
So that was then. So that was even before you went into you work with the ecosystem directly.
Yes. So as we're doing the startup, the Kuza.com thing, I was a student senator for 3 years.
Oh wow.
In student union government in OAA. All right. Where the time we had the transition committee, or the PRO of the transition committee, of the electoral transition committee in OAU, which was the final year when I was on campus, that then ushered in the next, just like the HINEC, right?
Yeah.
So, and I ran the first civic education campaign in student union politics in OAU. All right. Basically, just saying, guys, you need to get involved. You need to. So it was already part of my psyche, or my formula, as it were, to saying, guys, something has to give. So by the time I graduated from HIFA, that didn't stop as well. All right. So I don't even know, I was national youth leader for Kowa Party at some point. So I left school and I said, now that I'm done with student politics, what do we do?
Going to adult politics.
Right. So I started researching which political parties aligned with like the kind of Nigeria that I wanted to see at the time. And Professor Shunaya, who was in IFE at the time, was female presidential candidate for Kowa Party for 2015. I watched the campaign trail and how she did in the debate. I was like, okay, this is a party I know I can join, all right, and contribute to.
Yeah.
I joined the party almost immediately, and after that, basically just started contributing. I brought some of my friends who are graduated. I was like, guys, we have to figure out, like, a lot of all the guys of my friends who I know today in politics that joined me in Kowa Party were also student colleagues of mine in school. And so joined the party and started reaching out to the party leaders, started bringing young people. The party didn't have I think they had the social media account, but it wasn't really running. And like, guys, let's build up a social media account for the party. Let's reach out to more young people to join.
We're active.
Yeah, I was.
What was the name of the political party again?
Kowa Party.
Kowa.
Yeah.
You know, when I think back about people in a startup getting into politics, off the top of my head, I can only remember 2 names, and adding to that name, that makes 3. The first person that went in with so much determination and deliberate action is Akialabi.
Yeah.
That became the senator for.
He's another member for
Egbeda, yes.
In Ibadan, Oyo State.
And some of the things he pushed, I believe, I've not had the time to sit with him or discuss about it, and I don't think he has talked publicly about this, but I believe that his involvement in the games policies opened or channeled the door for more
people to
get involved in that space.
Absolutely.
Right. And then we have some of the billionaires and millionaires already actively, like Bet Nigeria and the rest. And maybe he thought to himself, I can't change everything, but if I were to change something, I'm going to change this.
Yeah.
Another person that is really getting hard in this is the CEO of Utsiva, Eitayo Ogumele. Eitayo.
I didn't know about that.
So he's there's this name they just crowned him the Mayagun of there's this place in Ogba in Lagos. I'm trying to.
Oh, okay.
And he's doing pretty good. Every year he does this thing when he gives out free jam forms to students in the environment. So he's focusing on education. Obviously, it's a startup of
it's a member
of edtech startup. So obviously, it's education that is and every time when he started becoming public about it, and I chatted him a bit about this politics you're getting into, and so these things you are doing. Every time I see new content about what he's doing in the space, I am encouraged. I'm encouraged that I'm not saying that they have more sense than anybody, but the ecosystem in terms of startup, in terms of building a business, and in terms of actually building stuff that solve people's problem, and seeing these people get into the ecosystem, get into politics and say, if I don't change anything, at least I change maybe education, or at least I change this or I change that. So whenever I hear someone in startup or from this ecosystem trying to play, thank God now that we have Honorable in the office as well. So with all of this, right, what are some of your, obviously I've read your websites during the times it was active now. What was your like initial perspective and what were you trying to achieve at the time?
So let's dial it down. Let's dial it back. How does Nigeria become this superpower Nigeria that we think about? The answer is technology and innovation.
Technology, yeah.
Right? I can go into, because I also did a master's in innovation policy. So I can go into literature halls, how countries advance their civilization. The answer is technology. There's no other answer, literally. Take all the top 10 richest countries in the world and the top 10 poorest countries in the world. The difference is technology and innovation. Basically, as a human species, if you keep on doing the same thing over and over again with the same methods, and you have another set of people doing the same thing but with different innovation, like innovating on the way that they do things, right? 100 years time, those countries that keep on doing the same thing in the same manner will be poorer than the ones who continue to innovate. Done. Like simple. Like there's no other metric.
Singapore is a practical modern
example. There's no other metric. Like you could think about other factors, right? And say, oh, there's leadership, or there is corruption, you could think about all these other factors, and I absolutely agree that those factors are important. I probably even think they're not less important, right? But the point about technology and innovation is so, like, the impact of technology and innovation in any society is so important for an advanced civilization. That's the first basis, right? It's like, I know I'm trying to emphasize this, but I cannot say this more than I'm currently saying it. If you start from that fundamental premise that the way that we'll be making cement is not the way that in 20 years ago, is not the way that we should be making cement right now. If we're making 10 bags of cement from a factory 10 years ago, we should have better manufacturing machines or industrial machines that makes us, with the same effort and with the same power, now 100 bags of cement. All right. That way, we're able to build more houses.
Let me tell you the story. There's an abridged story of the UK, Britain. We know about the Dutch.
Yeah.
The Dutch. The Dutch were the best ship makers.
Yeah.
At the time, when I read this, it just blew my mind, because once upon a time, the United Kingdom, Britain, were like the source of cheap labor.
Yeah.
And these cheap labor were hired to work on Dutch shipyards to build Dutch ships. Anyone listening to this was like, it's a lie. Britain was never the Africa of tech. Right now, everyone hires from Africa because they are cheap. So they were the cheapest labor, the cheapest good labor. Like they were very good at what they do. They have good craftsmanship, and they built some of the best ships. So basically, the Dutch were rich. Don't forget, many years ago, the Dutch lira was the currency of the world. Right? This is very crazy, because no one would think of that. So it really exists. And the British people will literally travel to go work in the Dutch, build ships. And then if your family says, oh, daddy has traveled to work there, you're rich, because he's working in the big place that they earn more. And guess what happened? Because of that talent of so much British people knowing how to build ships, shipyards started opening a lot more in Britain. Right? And obviously, the government provided support to ensure that the shipyards work. But the point is this: in just less than a couple of years later, Britain became known as the world's greatest naval force. It didn't happen by mistake. It was simply because one person was better at shipmaking, but they got so rich that they don't want to make ships again, so they hired labor from a country that provided their people
Yep.
with the talent and the skills and the access to become the best ship makers, and that talent returned back to their countries and made them the most feared
Yep.
naval force in the world.
Now, let me lay out a story. Why didn't the Dutch move beyond shipmaking?
Because the Dutch focused there, we are making ship. The purpose of our ship is just to trade.
Yeah.
Right.
And we know the Netherlands is actually, I mean, very, very close to sea level, right? So originally, and I mean, like I said, anyone can contest us. Originally, right, the Dutch needed the ships to survive.
Thank you.
Right, because they were very close to water. If you remember the plague of, I think, the 1860s, that really wiped a black plague that really wiped out a very large population. So they're very close to sea level. They needed, this was a do or die affair for them to be able to innovate around shipmaking.
Yeah.
But the British didn't just make ships. They made the ships and they were like, what's next?
Exactly.
These Africa guys. So it was not just a point about building an empire. It was, and that's why I said earlier when I talked about Nigeria and this entrepreneurial spirit and these wanting to do spirit, we already have it, right? The British said we're going to lead expeditions. So there were people who used the ships,
Build
and
ship.
said, what's next? What's in the order?
Go find what's
like,
go find
extra clear. They were just hungry for, what's, and again, I mean, people could, there's this argument about geography and say, well, Britain was very cold. They needed to figure out what the any solutions were, and that's why they looked out for where was better, because there was
they had ships. That's the point. Now they could go anywhere.
They didn't just have ships; they had guns. So it was a function of innovation. Like every problem that they had, they've looked for more and better ways to solve them, and then just kept on going and going. I mean, how did the Americas become a colony of the British Empire? So again, I was having a conversation with Professor Kolawabani about Africa's theocratic epistemology. Epistemology is the theory of knowledge.
The study of knowledge.
And theocracy, in this instance, Africa's epistemology, our idea about knowledge and knowing and education, was largely, if something is beyond our understanding, we assign it to the theocratic world, God or spiritual beings.
Like, we will not attempt, to find out beyond this.
And just, blame it on God, explanation even, it is supernatural. Yes. All right. And I was having a conversation, I was like, I mean, we say it is indigenous epistemology and we should be proud of what we have. But when that epistemology came in contact with colonizations, with civilizations that had guns and better ships, it was useless. Because now, like,
it's real.
It's real, right? It is real. And you couldn't beat that, you couldn't defeat that civilization because you did not have the technology to be able to defeat them. So I know we've digressed a lot, right? But the basis here is an advanced civilization and a poorer civilization. The difference is technology and innovation. Simple. If you take Nigeria of today and the Nigeria of tomorrow, that is a superpower, that is much more advanced, the difference is going to be technology and innovation. All right? And then that's the basis, but that's where we start from. Technology and innovation in what sense? It is that we have 200 million people, 65 million young people under the age of 30. We need to get them into jobs. How are we educating them? We need to think technology, right? Because the brick and mortar schools that we have right now is not going to educate 200 million people. I will give it to 5 million young children every day, every year, right? So we need to, the problems that we have, the challenges that we have, we need to think the way to solve this is to evolve and to design and to research, which is ties to my work with universities, research and bring out the kind of solutions, new technologies that help us solve these problems at scale, right? And that's how we get to that Eldorado Nigeria. You have a lot of young people who are out of work. Well, you don't have the factories. The factories that you have, like Nigeria's manufacturing for, since I left pharmacy, because I started checking at the time, manufacturing has not contributed up to 10% of our GDP.
No, it hasn't.
All right. So it is 9% this year, 8% that year, 8.5%,
Back down,
8.2%.
back down,
You know,
down.
because the factories don't exist. And why don't the factories exist? The factories exist. Well, number one, the ease of doing business environment does not even favor manufacturing in this country. I will tell you a very sad story, which is funny. Right? But manufacturing is like a lot of people who are manufacturing in this country are facing a lot of problems. So it's not easy to manufacture. That's number one. Number two, those who are currently manufacturing are not even using innovation or technology to be able to drive their own productivity.
And as a matter of fact, there's something I learned working with some companies in Lagos that they have manufacturing plants, but just hear this. But I don't think they're regarded as Nigerian manufacturing plant. They're just using the Nigerian land. So there's this factory in Lekki Expressway side. 90% of the staffs are Chinese. They bought a big house, and literally everyone living in that house work in that factory.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, maybe the gateman is Nigerian, maybe the cleaner is Nigerian, but everyone from the office to the staffs working in the factory, they are all Chinese. I needed some people to do the aluminum welding, and we got a Nigerian to do it. The most messy job you could ever find. And then this Chinese guy I was working with said, "Hey, I know my friend, my brother has a company." And so then, okay, come fix it. They brought in a whole new aluminum tubing, everything for the entire building. Not one person. Even the driver that came with them is Chinese.
My brother, this is where, and for the maybe when I'm in my 40s, you will see that this is what I will really be focusing on as I build up to that point.
So there's no how that could even account for Nigerian manufacturing.
See, I published something on LinkedIn. I called it a guide on innovation, complexity, and prosperity. And it ties to this conversation that we're having. The reason there is no deliberate policy on like industrial innovation or industrial skills for Nigerians, which is what you're talking about with this Chinese startup, is something that is beyond me, even till today, right? What you should have, let's break this down again, because we're going back to this Eldorado Nigeria. How does if Nigeria becomes a very, very great country tomorrow, let me tell you how it will happen. The first thing that would happen here is a government would, of course, there's a number of other things that's coming to my mind now, but let's leave politics and governance, for example. Let's just talk about the industrial complex. The first thing that will happen is a government would come and say, Nigeria is going to be the leader in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sectors. Industrial sectors, right? We could say, okay, fine, steel manufacturing, automobiles, electronics,
Cement.
of course there's cement. I mean, there's already a monopoly there, so I wouldn't even go there. Or construction technology.
Yes, construction technology.
Right. So let's say it's construction as a sector, not just cement. They will pick those 5 sectors, and then they will say, what is the state of the art when it comes to
Execution.
these sectors, right? Automobile industry, for example, there are EVs, there's computing in automobiles now. There's like the entire value chain of automobiles. There's spare parts. So they'll say, okay, fine. This is the state of the art in this sector, right? Where is Nigeria right now, and who are the players there? They will not say, okay, fine. Let's take automobile. I know the automobile industry is like, I mean, I wouldn't pick it if I was president. But let's use that as an example.
This Russian state-owned factory going into Nigeria soon to start
for in the automobile sector.
Yeah, the
first time.
Yeah.
So the government would say, okay, fine, these are the players in these sectors right now. We have a lot of our Igbo brothers who are in the spare parts space, right? And are making money.
Yeah.
Right? Importing spare parts. You know what? We don't want you no longer to start just be importing spare parts. Which of these spare parts can you produce? You know? Bolts. Oh, fine. Everybody uses bolts in the automobile industry.
Bolts, not
right?
Screws.
And screws. So we're going to support 100 companies just making bolts, number one. Number two, bolts we're not going to say we're no longer importing bolts into Nigeria again for automobiles. We're going to put a tariff on all, of course, it's not going to be at the beginning. You set up the policy, you support the companies, you say in each of these geopolitical zones in this country, we're going to have we said, okay, let's make it 120 for mathematics. We're going to support 20 companies in each geopolitical zone to be producing bolts, right? In Nigeria, bolts, screws, and nuts, right? So for those 20 companies in those political zones, we'll give you 6 months to set up. You set up the factory, all the machines that you need to make the bolts will be imported in this country. There will be zero tariff. The government will advance you facilities to import those machines, right? Do you know how many people, how many mechanical engineers and civil engineers that 120 companies making bolts, just bolts, nothing else.
The both not imagine how much of them we have there.
Each of the geopolitical zones in this country, right? You first of all wipe up at the very least, maybe 120,000 young people.
Actively employed.
Actively employed. So you set them up, the government provides a facility for them. If you need loan, if you need capital, if you need anything. Once companies are set up and the first batch of bolts gets into the market, you put a tariff on both nuts and screws.
Then you start exporting as well.
Right? And then you start exporting. You start finding markets. What will happen and this is just bolts, nuts, and screws in the automobile sector. So somebody who was importing bolts, nuts, and screws goes from trading bolts, nuts, and screws from China and making bolts, nuts, and screws. The guy is not just making the more money than he's currently making, he's also employing at least 100 people in a factory just making bolts, nuts, and screws. What will happen is we then say, okay, fine, in the next 4 years, you are no longer just going to look, these are not 120 companies, you're no longer just going to be making bolts, nuts, and screws. What exactly exists within this value chain of automobile sector that you can now graduate into, right? We then say, okay, fine, you're making bolts, nuts, screws, now you're making tire rims. Do you know how many cars come into this car every year?
You can even make tire, because in Ogba we see that Dunlop factory.
Yeah, and the Dunlop factory, yeah. So you say, okay, fine. We're organizing from bolts and screws to bolts, nuts, screws, tires, and the tires themselves, tire rims and tires themselves, right? And then the same thing applies. You take, and this is just the automobile sector. Remember I said in the beginning, you just pick 5 sectors, right? You go to, for example, another easy sector is agriculture. And you say anything that is going out of this country that is a food product, right, is going to be at the very least value added. At the very least, there's value add that is
and just do raw every single time.
There's value add that is like advanced value add. So you take cocoa, for example, and you make it, and the end product is chocolate, all right? So you're not even saying we're going to start exporting chocolate. No, you are saying the cocoa that you are sending is not just raw cocoa. It is mashed. Maybe I don't know the process of making chocolate, right? But the point is, by the time you add value to say this is not just cocoa, this is now mashed cocoa. That the only thing I need to do as a chocolate making factory is take the mashed cocoa that has been dried and standardized and everything, and then just add milk, and then you make your chocolate, right? And that's what we're not going to be exporting. For you to be able to do that, you need a machine, right? That will put the
as a matter of fact, there's a factory in Lagos that opens up to every cocoa farmer so they can bring it there, process it before they.
The process is right. So and there's no way you can operate that factory without 50 to 100 people. No way. Right? So if you do this across the 6 political zones, and this is just cocoa. When my dad was running a factory, every single time they bring in supplies, I see, because for you to be able to make paracetamol, not just paracetamol actually, a tablet. For you to be able to make a tablet, all these tablets that you have in sachets, you need, the way the chemistry works is, what you are getting here is, the drug is made up of powdered chemicals, right?
Yeah.
But because I don't know the chemistry word now, I've forgotten. But you have to bind the powder together.
Yeah.
Right? And before you to make a pill that is whole, so that it is not scattered.
And you have to press it into
exactly.
Pressure press.
So what you need really to be able to bind the pill together so that it doesn't fall apart is starch. All right? So every single time we bring in 2 powdered components that you mix with the active ingredients before it goes into the press, right? Maize flour and starch flour.
Yeah.
And so I remember 2 episodes where I have to ask my dad, like, this is maize flour, but we have maize in Nigeria.
But you're imported. Obviously, you said the name on the bag.
Of course, it's imported. Imported. Do you know how many pills people use in Nigeria every day?
Just paracetamol alone.
Every day. And we import freaking maize flour.
And the reason is that the maize that we have here are best edible. They're not refined for pharmaceutical use.
We eat, my brother. If you go to the street now, you will see people roasting maize. That is the best, like the ultimate value had for maize in Nigeria is roasted maize. That's like, no, think about it. And that's just maize. Maize. There is a value chain for pharmaceutical companies across the entire freaking world who needs, and their maize stock is not better than ours. Because, I mean, this is a freaking tropical area. So if you have 20 companies in Nigeria just making maize flour, just saying, you know what, all these maize that you guys are roasting, bring it, buy it, the government will support you, and then you have a factory that's just exporting maize flour, right?
That's where companies like Thrive Agri is succeeding, doing well.
That's a value chain. So again, if you think about that El Dorado Nigeria that I've been talking about, the way we get there is saying, what sectors are we competing in? How do we move up? That's why I was talking about the article I published around innovation and complexity. Because the products that we sell today are simple products, right? You start making complex products, you start earning more money. And there's no way you can make a complex product with 2 or 3 people.
You need a lot of people.
You need a lot of people. So that's employment. And with more employment, more people get salaries. More salaries, more industries. You know, because if you have money, you want to spend the money, right?
You work, you spend in the same.
You work, spend.
Let's get into to round up. Let's get into the work. See, audio good. So
yeah,
let's wrap it up with 2 things. Your work with Uni Innovation.
Yep.
And 3MTT.
Yep.
Right. So it's not your 3MTT.
Yeah.
And then your work with Uni Innovation.
Yeah. Thank you for that clarification.
Because 3MTT is the government
Yep.
and currently spearheaded by Francis Sani.
Yep.
And then you are doing innovation with HEI.
Yep. HEI Innovation.
CCI. Now, there is this thing in Covenant University called there's this ICT Innovation in Covenant University, and there's the Ebron as well.
Ebron,
in Covenant University. Now, some of the students that I know that went fully into the innovation section of Covenant University, I'll just say see you for short. They know they cannot get like a first class upper, because the activities that you need to execute on in the innovation hub takes a ton of your time.
Yeah.
Right? And so when Mr. Stephen was leading that project in Covenant University, was telling some students, see, you don't have to want to get a first class. If you have the capacity, that's great. But you can just do well so that you can also do excellently well with your innovation as well. So because once you graduate, you'll be able to do much better. Now, go to other universities. They don't have innovation as a core of their activities in university. So what happens is external people come in and say, hey, we're going to do an innovation program for these people in your school. And then students are now saying, I love the innovation idea. I want to invest my time in that. And now their academic work is suffering.
Yeah.
How do you think about that? How do you, how do you do that?
How do we marry that? So the first thing here is, funny enough, I was in Lagos 2 days ago. We're working with British Council to develop a national entrepreneurship framework, a national entrepreneurship and innovation framework for all universities in Nigeria. We've also been partnering with Nigerian Universities Commission for this.
Oh, that's good.
And the simple idea here is to be able to integrate the notion of what is the I would say entrepreneurship skills and innovation skills across board. So that even if you're a biochemistry student, right, your curriculum and the activities in the university involves actually going through these activities on campus. That says by the time you're done, if you see an opportunity, which is what entrepreneurship really is, if you see an opportunity to innovate, right, and provide value much more than what's currently on the market, right, you have the skills and the ability to be able to, seize that opportunity within biochemistry, if that's what you care about, or within any other sector. And I think that's way to marry that. I would agree with you that the culture of our universities is not innovation focused, right? Even within researchers and faculty, a lot of faculty, professors, lecturers are publishing papers because they want to get promoted, not because they are really interested in the idea in and of itself or in the research endeavor. And that's one of the things that has really held us back, as a country. I was telling you about this, again, Nigerian Eldorado vision that we say Nigeria can really be a superpower. There is no country in the world that is really economically powerful that is not advancing in research of what is the next thing.
Unfortunately, research is just to write a paper.
Just right. I mean, academia globally has this culture issue, right? But some way worse than others. And for Africa, the idea that we want to be able to say malaria. And I say this every now and then, if malaria was a Western disease,
We've been gone by
it would have been gone. Why is Bill Gates the one funding malaria vaccine research? Like, we're the ones getting sick, and malaria is a deadly disease.
Jeez.
Right? So the end, like our clinical research and medical guys, like, where's the research on solving this problem? You see how much money is going into public research, like publicly funded research when it comes to Alzheimer's disease or a couple of these Parkinson's that is much more, prevalent in the West, because that's the next frontier. That's like, we want to solve this. We don't have that culture within our universities or within our countries, because it's also like a national issue, right? Europe is targeting 3% of its entire GDP focused just on research and innovation, right? In Nigeria, it is less than 0.3% of our GDP. In fact, I don't even think it's up to 0.1%. Because if I think about National Research Fund from TED Fund, I think about NCC, I think about
TED Fund is literally,
right?
We have buildings in Unilag and OU.
I mean, TED Fund has 8.5 billion naira every year that goes to research. All right. Naseni has some funding for research. NCC has some funding for research. The research institutes probably get salaries and maybe a little funding. Like, the entire funding for that goes into research, publicly provided funds for research into these particular areas in Nigeria. I'm not sure it's up to 0.1% of our GDP. That's number one. Number two, we've not gotten to the point where we're saying, like I said earlier when I was talking about industrial innovation, picking the sectors. Because you want to say, as a country, this is where, as like, whether the president or the administration or whatever it is, this is what our focus is on: innovation and research for the next 4 years. We're going to give any research institute or any university research group 1 billion to solve this problem. We're going to give 5 of them and ensure that this problem gets solved. That's the way you move forward across different sectors. You say, you know what? How are we? Give me a problem.
Before we get there, like, what is your thesis at HEI? Like, how are you going about, like, for example, when I speak to a few people that are involved in 3MT, like, this is how we're going about solving the problem, and this is what we hope to see in 10 years. What are your thesis around solving the same problem and getting this innovation into innovation?
So it's really try, like, we have a mission, and that mission here is, well, fostering a culture of innovation within universities in Africa and enabling universities to contribute to this economic prosperity conversation through innovation across the board. That's the sole mission. The way we do this is, one, you have to figure out, and I think this is a very good point to say here, that we published a white paper. I don't know if you've seen that.
No, I've not seen that.
It's on our website. A white paper that just details this thing, right? On what are the 7 critical challenges that we have to solve. All right, we call it the 7 mountains that you have to solve when it comes to research-based innovations and this mission of a culture of innovation. 1, industry academia linkages. This guy just saying, whatever research ends you have within industry, how can academia provide a solution for that problem?
Okay.
Right. 2 is innovation culture within universities, which is, in this instance, this idea that we just talked about, professors just, publishing research for research purposes, you need to change that culture. You need to incentivize promotion criteria, for example, and say you've written 5 papers. How many patents do you have from those five papers? Like, what's the innovation coming out from those 5 papers, right? The third one, in no particular order, is funding for prototypes. Because you then figure out that there are actually a number of researchers and faculties within African universities that actually have developed some prototypes, right? How do you get them from that MVP that they have, right, to get them into the market, right? And then, of course, there's funding. This is the fourth one. There's funding originally for building prototypes in the first instance. Say, okay, well, I'm doing the research. I have research output. I want to build a prototype that you can touch and feel, right, from the research output that I have. All right. And then, of course, there are 3 other points: intellectual property management, which is to say, okay, now, do we have property rights regime that ensures that if you come up with this innovative prototype, your IP can be protected. And then the sixth one rather, is technology transfer management, which is how do you like within the universities, how do you ensure that there's a technology transfer office that is saying, you're a researcher, you have figured out the next way to, increase the yield of maize in Nigeria that is not GMO, that is much more sustainable, right? Can we take your idea and help you do something out of it from each university? Because without that, researchers are not the kind of people that they don't have that entrepreneurial,
that way that used to just die
exactly in the research lab. You need an office to be able to manage that, right? And then I think the 7th one is around innovation leadership, which is that the universities themselves, right, the leaders of universities themselves have to be able to say that, yes, we want to drive along this path, right? So there's that we'll probably sign the white paper, but largely all the efforts that we push out from HR Innovation and CC Hub is largely around these 7 critical areas. And then support. So in terms of activities now, over the last 2 years, we've given like almost $250K, $5,000 each, to students who have a research idea. They want to build a prototype out of it.
That's brilliant.
Right? And some of them are even have raised companies. For example, the last project that we did with Innovators and GIZ, we actually have students who have graduated and now have businesses from their research idea. Right? There's this story I like to tell of Daniel in University of Ibadan. He's currently doing his PhD now. Has built this biomedical device for breast cancer diagnosis. All right. And, basically just saying, this is the problem that we have when it comes to breast cancer and that. So the problem, let me just say the problem. Rural women once they get diagnosed of breast cancer, that's the last time they go to the hospital. Because for every diagnosis, you have to pay almost 400,000. Wow. Why? The device that you use for breast cancer diagnosis, there's a needle, it's called parochial needle or something like that. I'm not sure what the name is exactly, but it costs so much for every single time, and you have to do it 8 times before you even start the whole treatment. So what Daniel is working on is a 3D printed or not, but a reusable needle that you only have to use once and you can use every single time you are diagnosing somebody of breast cancer. You don't have this problem in the West because when you are diagnosed with breast cancer diagnosis, you have health insurance or you have whatever, or you have the means to be able to go through that process. So our mortality rates for women diagnosed with breast cancer in Nigeria is almost above 70%.
So his innovation is trying to fix that.
It's the innovation trying to fix that. And we've worked into, they have a business, they have a bank account, they have a corporate account, right? And they have a product. And we have a number of them like that. Like in Kenya, for example, there is a student from University of Nairobi that we worked with who has built a digital product for helping the disability community to interface with doctors, especially those who are hard of hearing. So they're building a community where you have this product that's using artificial intelligence on one side to communicate with the deaf guy or with the patient who is hard of hearing, and then a community of translators who can also actually help the doctor interface. Because most times they don't just get healthcare because you can't communicate. And so you have a number of them like that. In Namibia, we have another team from Namibia University of Science and Technology who's built out this digital platform using artificial intelligence as well to be able to digitize medical records in Namibia. If you go to Namibia today, right, and you want to go to the hospital, you have to take your medical passport, which is the book where all your medical records are.
And you can you can get it for different hospitals.
Huh?
And you can get it for, like, say you lost it to one hospital, you go to a new hospital, you get a new one from there.
I mean, if you get it lost, all your medical records are lost. So now it's trying to digitize that process, and they also have this product, they have the bank account, they have a corporate, they're properly registered as a company. And basically, you think about some of the challenges that we have across the different
Very simple
sectors,
challenges.
right? You can figure out and say, you know what, from a research perspective, or from, and these are, some of them are digital, some of them are much more research based, but basically just saying, what challenge do we have in Africa, right? How do we plug somebody somewhere to build a business model that's focused on solving this problem using innovation and technology? And we have all the technology stacks that we did not even have to contribute to. I take that back, actually.
I'm about to say that. I take that back.
Because we do contribute to technology stack, especially for AI.
In our very little way. And there's a lot that's going on right now with NVIDIA coming into Africa full-time, partnering with Cassava Technologies. And
I take that back.
Yeah.
Even if we Africans in Africa are doing little contribution, there are Africans in those other Western universities and research centers that are actually contributing technology more than we had made and more than we can actually care for.
Yeah.
So again, that's the thesis, right? To say we have to change the culture within university and the systems within the university. We have to support directly those guys and say, guys, can you see an example of somebody who is solving this problem based off their final year thesis? Daniel's product I just mentioned to you, like, by the way, was his master's thesis.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And now he has a company just based off on that. And that's in my mind, that's the way that you want to look at the challenges that we have on the continent and say, how do we plug this? How do we use technology to drive the solutions? Because if you do that and you plug that within an industrial value chain, like, in my mind, economic development is simple. I know the implementation can be hard, right? But the formula to get it done is not patented.
It's not.
Right? It is out there in the public. You have to contextualize it for your own country, yes, right? But everyone knows you, actually, for countries that are, if you have any country that is above, in fact, 150 million people, and you don't have a solid industrial base, that country is going to be a poor country. There are no two ways about it, right? And the industrial base cannot just be industry for whole manufacturing or value chain.
Yeah.
It has to be industrial chain that is powered by technology and innovation and is improving every now and then. And in my mind, that's the way forward. I don't see any other way, to be honest.
We definitely need to combat, because we need to do a deep dive into the political.
Oh, we didn't even talk about.
We didn't talk about that. So thank you so much for taking the time. We definitely need to come back and do this.
Yeah, sure.
To come back and do this.